We are facing our most serious security situation since World War II.
Wow.
I mean, that is a direct quote. It's not from some, dystopian novel or a cable news anchor trying to keep you hooked.
No.
That's the official word from the Norwegian government.
And that's a statement that just lands with a thud, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Norway isn't exactly known for hyperbole.
Not at all.
You think stability, you think diplomacy. You don't usually think threats on the level of World War II.
Exactly. And that is why we are doing this deep dive. We're looking at a new analysis from Cult about the Norwegian Police Security Services, the PST's 2026 Threat Assessment. And the headline here is just, it's screaming. Because the group behind this WWI eye-level anxiety isn't some mobilizing army. It's a hacking group called Salt Typhoon.
Which, sounds like a bad weather report, right?
Yeah.
But in the world of advanced, persistent threats, it's becoming a household name for all the worst reasons.
So we're going to unpack this today. Because the deeper you dig into the sources, the weirder it gets. And frankly, a lot scarier. This isn't just about stealing passwords.
Right.
We're talking state-sponsored actors, private contractors running spy operations like a business, and a strategy that involves hijacking the plumbing of the internet itself.
And that distinction is so vital. This isn't a smash and grab. The PST report makes it really clear. The goal here is infrastructure dominance. When the head of the PST, Beat Gangos, invokes World War II, she's signaling that the entire game has changed.
Okay, so let's start there. That comparison. Since World War II, that implies a total systemic risk. What is actually happening in Norway that justifies that kind of language?
It all comes down to a phrase they use, enhanced stability. The report cites pressure from, multiple foreign intelligence services, but it really zeroes in on Chinese security services.
Right.
And enhanced stability doesn't just mean better hackers. They're talking about a structural shift in how these operations work. The PST found that Salt Typhoon has compromised vulnerable network devices inside Norwegian organizations.
Right, not just computers, but the devices themselves.
Exactly. Routers, servers, the stuff that manages the traffic.
See, this is the part that really stood out to me. When we hear about a hack, it's usually, company X lost 5 million customer emails.
Yeah.
But the PST isn't focused on data theft here.
Because if you control the device, you don't need to steal the data right away. You own the road the data travels on. The source material points to something incredibly strategic here.
Which is?
These actors are exploiting Norwegian routers not just to attack Norway, but to, and I'm quoting, conduct operations against third countries.
Ah, okay, so that's the kicker. It's that old island hopping strategy, but for cyber warfare.
Precisely.
If I'm a hacker in Beijing and I want to attack a target in, say, London, and I launch it directly, the defenders are going to see an IP address from China. Instant block.
Right. But if I first compromise a Cisco router in some stable, boring data center in Oslo,
then the attack looks like it's coming from Norway.
And that complicates everything. It complicates attribution. Now the victim is blaming Norway. It complicates defense because you can't just block all traffic from a friendly NATO ally.
So Norway becomes a proxy, an unwitting launchpad.
And for the PST, that's a complete nightmare. It means their own national infrastructure is being turned into a weapon against their allies.
Wow. It turns the whole country into a digital zombie, so to speak. But I want to pivot to the who. We keep saying Salt Typhoon, and we know it's Chinese state-sponsored. But the PST report drops this one detail that I think explains that enhanced ability you mentioned.
I think I know where you're going.
They aren't just military units. They are linked to private Chinese cybersecurity companies.
Yes. This is the corporate twist that is defining modern espionage. We have to kind of shed that image of the guy in a hoodie or the uniformed officer in a government bunker. A lot of this work is being done by people in office parks.
With HR departments and performance bonuses.
Exactly, the privatization of spycraft.
So why do that? Is it just that the government doesn't have the talent?
It's not a lack of talent, it's about scale and deniability. Think about the economics of it. If you only use your military intelligence officers, you're bottlenecked by government recruitment, budgets, all that bureaucracy.
Right.
But China has this massive, thriving private tech sector. So by contracting this work out, what the industry calls the contractor ecosystem, the state can just tap into this huge pool of talent.
It's like the gig economy for hacking.
In a lot of ways, yeah. And these private contractors are hungry. They're competing for government contracts. So that creates an incentive to be aggressive, to run high-volume operations. The PST report notes the central role of private contractors, lets the intelligence services expand their capabilities way faster than they could in-house.
That makes the scale part of this threat really click. If you have, I don't know, 50 different private companies all bidding to hack foreign infrastructure, you're going to get a lot more breaches than one government unit.
And you get a layer of insulation. If a private company gets caught, the state can just shrug and say, oh, rogue actors. It's a very convenient model.
So Norway is dealing with this flood of contractor-led attacks. But, okay, this can't just be a Norwegian problem. I was reading this and thinking, is Norway just the canary in the coal mine?
I'd say the canary probably died a while ago. Norway's just the latest one to publicly scream about it. If you widen the view beyond the cult article, you see this is a global campaign.
The sources mention that U.S. officials have called this an epoch-defining threat. I mean, that is not a phrase you just throw around lightly.
No, that's up there with the Cold War. It marks a real shift in the philosophy of cyber conflict.
Yeah.
We've moved from just espionage to, well, to prepositioning.
Prepositioning.
Yeah. The source notes that back in August of 2025, the FBI revealed at least 200 U.S. companies had been compromised by Salt Typhoon.
200. And we're not talking about, like, small Shopify stores here.
No. The targets are very specific, very strategic. The attackers exploited a known Cisco vulnerability back in mid-February 2025. They used that to pivot straight into the telecommunications sector.
The source actually names AT&T and Verizon. I mean, that's basically the duopoly of American communication.
And Canada, too. The report mentions 3 network devices at a major Canadian telecom were also compromised. So what you're seeing is a synchronized, basically simultaneous infiltration of the communications backbone of NATO's entire northern flank, Norway, Canada, and the U.S.
It's the scale that gets me, but also the specific targets within that scale. The source material brings up something that, I mean, it made headlines everywhere. The breach involving the Trump and Vance campaign in 2024.
And this is where we see that human intelligence capability in action. You have to look at this dispassionately, just from a capability standpoint.
Sure.
Presidential campaigns have some of the best security people in the world. They are paranoid by design.
And yet, Salt Typhoon still got in.
They got in because they didn't have to attack the campaign's laptops. They attacked the pipes. The source says they intercepted communications of senior political officials. If you're sitting inside the Verizon or AT&T infrastructure, you don't need to send a phishing email to a campaign staffer.
You just wait for the call to be placed.
And you record it at the switch level.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. It bypasses all those end-to-end encryption apps if you can just catch the call when it hits the regular phone network.
Or even just the metadata, right? Who's calling who for how long? That alone would be an intelligence goldmine.
Absolutely. It just illustrates their reach.
Yeah.
If they can touch the communications of a presidential ticket, then effectively no target is out of reach.
So we have 80 countries affected. We have major telecoms compromised. We have private contractors driven by profit. I want to go back to the technical side for a second, that plumbing aspect. Why is hacking a router so much worse than, hacking a server and stealing a database?
Persistence. That is the magic word in cybersecurity. Yeah. If you hack a laptop, eventually the user reboots it or runs an antivirus scan or just gets a new one, the access is fleeting. But network infrastructure, like edge routers.
Nobody ever reboots a router unless the internet goes down.
Exactly. And almost nobody runs antivirus on their router. It's just a black box sitting in a rack somewhere. These devices have to be on all the time. You don't mess with them. And Salt Typhoon is exploiting that inertia. They're modifying the firmware.
The actual operating code of the device.
Right. So even if you did reboot it,
it wouldn't matter.
It wouldn't matter. The malware is baked into the brain of the device. This lets them stay hidden for months, maybe years. The PST report doesn't say exactly how long they were inside the Norwegian systems, but given the epoch-defining label from the U.S., you have to assume this has been a long-term colonization of the network.
Colonization is a really disturbing word choice, but it fits. It goes back to my burglar analogy. It's not that they just broke in, they rewired the house. So now every time you flip a light switch, it sends a signal back to Beijing.
And they can cut the power whenever they want. That's the sabotage angle. The expert analysis in the sources points out that while the current activity is espionage, just listening, monitoring, the access itself allows for disruption.
Which brings us right back to that World War II comment. In World War II, sabotaging infrastructure bridges, railways, telegraphs, that was a prelude to an invasion. It was a way to cripple the war effort.
Precisely. If you are a military planner in Norway or the U.S. or Canada, and you see that your adversary has compromised the switches that control your internet and your phones, you have to assume that in a real shooting war, those systems go dark.
It's the digital version of preparing the battlefield.
It is, and it's happening during peacetime.
Yeah.
That's what blurs the lines and makes this whole thing so dangerous. You're seeing military-grade pre-positioning being done by private contractors on civilian infrastructure.
And because it's civilian infrastructure, private companies like AT&T, the government has a much harder time defending it.
Correct. They can't just station soldiers in every server room. It forces this collaboration between public and private sectors that is, messy and slow. Meanwhile, the contractors running Salt Typhoon are operating with incredible speed. They find one vulnerability, like that Cisco flaw, and they automate the exploitation across thousands of targets in a matter of days.
It really feels like we're playing catch-up.
We are. That enhanced ability the PST is talking about. It's very real. They've industrialized this entire process.
Okay, so let's try to wrap our heads around the big picture here. We started with Norway screaming fire about a security situation they haven't seen in 80 years.
A scream that's being echoed by the FBI and Canadian intelligence.
We know the actors are Salt Typhoon, a Chinese state-linked operation that's using a swarm of private contractors to scale their attacks.
Right.
They're hitting the absolute nervous system of the internet routers, telecom providers, to establish this deep, hard-to-remove persistence.
And they're using that access for two things: immediate intelligence gathering, listening in on everyone from regular people to presidential candidates, and for strategic positioning for, potential future disruption.
Plus, they're using the victims as weapons themselves. Norway isn't just a target, it's a tool being used against others.
It is a masterclass in gray zone warfare. It's aggressive, it's global, and it's all happening right underneath our noses. Literally in the hardware that's letting us have this conversation right now.
We always try to leave the listener with a final thought, and I keep coming back to the silence of it all.
How do you mean?
Well, if the PST says this is the worst situation since World War II, and we know they successfully compromised the communications of the highest profile political targets in the U.S., those are just the ones we caught.
That's the scary part of intelligence, isn't it? You only ever know about the enemy's failures. You rarely know about their successes.
Exactly. We know about the routers they found, we know about the 200 companies the FBI identified, but given the scale and the fact that this is run by contractors who are incentivized to find access anywhere they can, what is the access they have right now that we don't know about?
If they're living in the firmware, invisible to standard scans, the number of compromised devices could be exponentially higher.
Are our networks already owned? Is the infrastructure we rely on for banking, for healthcare, for emergency services, is it already pre-wired for a blackout that just hasn't been triggered yet?
It's the ultimate sleeper cell, but instead of people, it's the machines themselves.
On that incredibly reassuring note, maybe go check for firmware updates, people.
Yeah.
And perhaps rethink what you say over the phone. Thanks for listening to The Deep Drive.
Stay vigilant.